Okay, what is up, guys? Whatever's here, man. We're back with a video. This time we're gonna talk about Avatar Aang here, and is he was he really a bad father? Now I've been recently looking at a lot of comments lately about this topic. Um, but a while back I saw maybe like a video or two of talking about why he was, what he, why he was a bad father. And then I see a lot of comments nowadays they're saying pretty much it's no excuse or whatever things like that, and that he was just a bad father, and a lot of people say they can't really see it, knowing Aang, his character, and all that. So here I'm just here to really elaborate on this subject here to really break it down for you guys. So is Aang really a bad father? And so let's pretty much get into it. So first and foremost, Aang, in my opinion, was not a bad father. Now let me elaborate why. First and foremost, uh, when we hear in these stories about why Aang was a bad father or whatever, it all starts from these theories and things like that. All came from his kids, right? The way his oldest two kids, Boomy and Kaya, are right. The way they are and the way they talk about their dad and the way their actions are now go makes it seem as if Aang was a bad father, and you gotta really understand it here like this here. How many of you guys maybe potentially like in your own childhood thought your parent was a bad parent? Maybe you didn't like some of their actions, but the older you got later on, you were like, okay, I can see why they did this and why they did that. Now, I think it's more so a situation like that with those two. Um, and even in their older years, they still maybe have yet to understand or forgive their father, but there is things he had to do. So, like I said, those the most of these theories and things like that come straight from not just theories, but most of the what we hear about his actions come from his two oldest kids in Tenzin. So that's where we really get most of our information from. So you gotta realize most of their information is most of their opinions are subjective, right? So they're gonna have subjective opinions about their father, and their opinions may misguide us in our understanding. So to break it down simply, I really think the way, and a lot of people say that Aang's character is it just don't like seem right, but and this is truly great story writing to me, and the way Aang was as a father. It's truly great story writing because it reflects reality. It is the most realistic outcome really possible. It's not no BS. Aang was a perfect father type situation. It's not a you know, it's just like literally perfect situation or reality of what would have happened if someone like Aang truly existed and truly had kids, because it would probably pretty much go the way it did. So, like I said, let's break down what happened. So, Kaya and Boomy felt like Aang didn't give them as much attention as Tenzin was one of the things. Um, and which makes sense, right? So we'll break this down by giving a few examples, right? I'll give two examples. First example is well, and the reason they felt like this was because Tenzin was an airbender. Now that is true, but it's not just because this, and here's the misconception: they felt like maybe it was just because he was an airbender and they weren't. That's not true. Tenzin was an airbender, so it forced Aang to treat Tenzin the way he had to treat Tenzin. So it wasn't favoritism. There, a lot of people feel like that was favoritism, and that then that's what they felt like, it was favoritism towards Tenzin because he was an airbender. But it wasn't specifically because of that. Yes, he was an airbender, and that caused this, but it wasn't because he was just an airbender that he favored them. He pretty much had to do certain things to Tenzin or with Tenzin because if he was an airbender. So it's kind of a, I think I explained that okay, but it's different. Just because it was an airbender doesn't mean Aang favored him, but it did mean Aang had to do certain things with Tenzin that he couldn't do with the other one. So let me put this in context. So say a father has three kids. One of the kids plays a they he okay. So the father's a coach. He has three kids. One of the kids are on his is on his team. If I can talk, godly, is on his team. he's gonna eventually spend more time with the kid that is on his team than the rest of the kids, because he's naturally, just because the kid, he's gonna probably work more with this kid to help him with his game. He's gonna see this kid more at practice. He's gonna see this kid, take him to the games, and he's gonna see him during the games just a lot more naturally. And he's gonna end up spending the most time with this kid, outside of, practice, during practice, things like that. Um, just naturally, as to help him with his game, and just because they have this special bond, right, with each other. So it's just natural that if you play, that if they're doing something in common, that they're gonna have, if they have something in common, they're more likely to end up spending more time together. So let me put this in another example as well. Let's say, let's give an example. This example may be a little this is more specific, so a lot of people may not get this one. So I'll make it really brief. So let's say LeBron James. If you happen to know LeBron James, he has three kids. His oldest two, he has two older sons, and his youngest is his daughter. His two oldest sons, they both play basketball. LeBron James is a professional basketball player. If you don't know, and he goes to all his kids. Most of if any game he can make it, he goes to his kids' games, supports them, and all type of deals with when it comes to basketball for them. Now he's a great father to his daughter. Does all the good daddy things, or he supposed to. And but let's say his daughter decides to not play basketball, then it would feel like to his daughter that he spent more time with his older two sons than he ever did with her. And but it may just seem like that to her, but not knowing it's because it's because the other two did play basketball. So to her, it's gonna feel like that because she didn't play basketball, that her father um is will probably like favors her less than the other two. But it's more just gonna seem like that to her because the father went to more of the boys' games, because and he was more involved with the boys' life than her, because the boys had something more in common, and it's gonna just feel like that to them. So that's kind of where I feel like Boomy and Kaya, their relationship with Aang was, and it's gonna always feel like that if you don't really see outside the bigger picture. Now, besides just that, Aang was also the Avatar. So I'm sure to a certain extent, all of his kids had a sense of certain neglect to him, right? So all of them he may not have been able to spend as much time with them as he wanted to, mainly just because he couldn't, right? He's the Avatar. The Avatar is the pretty much protector of the whole, all of the nations, right? So he has to keep everything safe, everyone happy, and all that good stuff. And not even to mention, he actually probably had a heavier load than any of the previous avatars, because not only was he keeping the balance, he was also building a new city, which he was building a whole new city at the time. So it was definitely a lot more than just simply keeping the peace as the previous avatars did. He actually had to freaking he was building a whole city around the time in his later years. So yeah, that obviously puts a lot of time taken away from him. Once again, nothing he can do really about that there, and probably still at the end of the day spent as much time with his kids as possible. But to them, they would feel neglected, just like anybody who has a parents that work a lot or something like that. They may feel the same way, right? So it's a lot of things that, you got to make sacrifices to keep everyone safe or whatever, happy and all of that good stuff. Um, or not happy, but keep everyone, to provide. Let me say it like that. Yeah. And also, like I said, moving back to Tenzin, Aang was the last Avatar. Now, I think this is a big misconception here. I don't think Aang was shooting to have a Airbender's son or Airbender. I think Tenzin just happened, right? I don't think Aang truly was looking to have, like repopulate Airbenders or whatever. But when Tenzin came and Tenzin did show up, he took the opportunity to, instill to him the the nomad ways of the Airbenders, right? So I don't, I think it's a misconception that just because Boomy couldn't bend and Kyle was a waterbender, that he just instantly wrote those them off. But I think it was more so he wasn't even shooting for an airbender, but more so once he did get an airbender, he was he just jumped at the opportunity to pretty much teach Tenzin the ways of the nomads to keep his culture alive, right? And so that after even though when he's passed, that Tenzin will still be able to teach nomad culture. Yeah, because I think a lot of people or fans think, oh well, Aang was just having kids to have an airbender, and he was like, oh Boomy, you're no use, go sit in the corner. Kaya, you're no use, go sit in the corner. Ah, Tenzin, perfect. Let's roll out. But it was more so just kind of happened if it happened type of deal. With that. And moving on though, like I said, so being the last airbender, he felt a responsibility to teach, keep his culture going. So even at times, I don't even think Tenzin fully enjoyed the burden he had to have of learning all of this in nomad culture. So it wasn't, and I'm pretty sure Aang didn't, feel too great about forcing it down to Tenzin, but it was more so like once again a have to situation. Now this is completely realistic, right? In every sense of the reality, this would happen. This situation would happen where, um, obviously, where there is some type of, like I explained earlier with the basketball or sports situation, when there is some type of common ground that one kid has more over, shares more with a parent than the others, then that kid would obviously seem more favoritized or whatever, because there's more you're more likely to spend the most time with that one child, or multiple, if they all have that same trait or character, if they all share a common if I could thought theme, right? So that's what it felt like to the other two, and that's why I think we get such a bad picture of Aang, because it's so subjective from Kaya and Boomy, that that's what it's supposed to seem to us from them, right? It's supposed to seem like that from them, which is great story writing, because they probably would normally feel like that. But if we really look behind, read between the lines, it's pretty much the way it really would have went down, no matter how you look at it, right? If someone has has to really, if he has to pretty much put his whole culture into one kid, he's just gonna spend the most time with that kid. He's just gonna have the biggest relationship with that kid, because he's gonna have to be around that kid the most, and that kid's gonna have to be around his father the most. Now, favoritism thing, and obviously you have to teach him airbending as well, which is also another big point, but more so the culture wise. And there was a certain point. This is the one thing I don't really see, was I feel like even though they weren't airbenders, maybe even Boomy himself could have learned about the culture. So that was one thing I never did understand. Maybe I just missed something there. Maybe you have to be an airbender to really know about the nomad culture. But I never understood why Boomy, even being a non-bender, could learn about the culture and ways of the airbenders, to maybe open up a school of his own as well, or with Tenzin and stuff. I never understood that, but that was the one thing I was a little bit curious on and stuck on about why Aang never did that. But besides that, yeah, everything else makes sense. Everything else adds up. Everything else seems pretty darn accurate, and it seems like really great story writing if you really look deep down into it. Now, at the end of the day, I think Aang treated all his kids pretty much the same, and I just think it came down to Tenzin getting the most time with Aang, in most, you can almost say attention too, but not like the sort of attention you think of, but more so he gave him attention as to more like being a, it was and I don't know why I didn't say this earlier. I don't know why I didn't say this earlier, but it was a student teacher bond as well, besides a parent and kid bond. So that's obviously also what was there as well. I meant to say that way earlier in the video. It was a student teacher bond between Tenzin and Aang, besides being just a parent and stuff. So, but yeah, like I said, my only thing was, I mean, just like I said, Aang, I think pretty much treated all the kids the same. Obviously, like I said, but there was more so he had to do for Tenzin than the other two that he couldn't really do for the other two. But like I said, I still don't know why. Maybe even Kaya or Boom. I don't know why. Neither of them could have learned about the nomad culture, but I guess you just had to be an airbender to understand. I don't know. Like I don't know that real full aspects behind that, but that's the tricky one for me. If you know, leave a comment about that. But anyways, yeah, I think that's it for this video, man. I think we pretty much broke it down pretty fully. But anyways, if you enjoyed, please hit that like button, go ahead and subscribe button. We'll be back with more.